At Novartis, our goal is to reimagine medicine and to do that for patients all around the world. We're deeply committed to improving global health, and we believe as part of that journey, we also have to tackle climate change. We know with changes in the climate, we see important changes to how human health is impacted, most notably a disease like malaria, but many others. We also know that as we see impacts on climate change, we also see increases in diseases like asthma and lung disease that are chronically affecting human populations. We think this matters not only because of its impact on human health, but also because the natural ecosystem is an important source of medicines. We've learned over the last century that many important medicines have come from biodiversity. And the impacts on climate change on biodiversity, of course, are now becoming dramatic and exponential.
Some people predict that by 2030, there may be as many as 250,000 deaths at a minimum directly attributable to changes in disease because of changes in the climate. In response to that, we're going to have more effective drugs and more available drugs for people to treat those things as a result of what we see after climate change.
So all the investments in environmental sustainability will really support the mission of Novartis, as well as will really help us for us to be the catalyst for this positive change, to be really a leader in environmental sustainability.
Novartis has been working well over a decade on dropping emissions through efficiency and through investments in process improvements. Novartis realized that we needed to be much more ambitious and to take more rapid action and more comprehensive action. So the executive committee of Novartis approved a next generation set of goals, embracing carbon neutrality in our own operations, a 50% reduction of carbon emissions across our entire value chain, water neutrality, and plastic neutrality. The work that we're doing in mitigation is focused on reducing our emissions as much as possible, but also pushing very hard into renewables. A good example is the virtual power purchase agreement for a wind farm in Santa Rita, East Texas. We signed a deal in 2017, and the contract came online, and the wind farm started producing energy in 2019. As a result, 220,000 tons of carbon each year are being displaced from the electrical grid. That eliminated the carbon footprint in the US and Canada for all of the electricity that we buy for our operations in those countries. Our forestry projects in Colombia, Argentina, Mali, and China. Collectively, we anticipate that those will remove over 4.5 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere over a 30-year period of time. And the social impact from those projects, in some cases, ranges from a 300% to 400% return on investment when you look at the impact in the local community.
The actual gold standard in this space, though, is can we look to see how we can make the molecules that we put into patients better for the environment when they get out there as those chemicals at the end of the process? Can we make a molecule better so it's more sustainable and more environmentally friendly when it becomes yet another chemical that humans are putting into the environment?
Climate changes doesn't only impose risks on Novartis, but on the whole pharmaceutical business generally. Some of these risks are related to our own physical infrastructure. Where are our manufacturing sites and plants and footprint generally? There are also the risks that are imposed on the supply chain.
Externally, we're partnering with others to find out new approaches, new technology, and new methods that could reduce our footprint, not only inside the company, but with our supply chain partners. We've partnered with the MIT Joint Program on the Science and Policy of Global Change to examine 4 key risk factors associated with climate change at 70 of our sites globally. Those results were added into the enterprise risk management system of the company, and we also delved into specific site-level risks with flooding at the Cambridge campus. That information and modeling was then shared with the city of Cambridge to help them with their climate resilience planning and community resilience efforts. If Novartis wants to create enduring change and to be a catalyst for change, one of the most important things that we can do is to help remove barriers and ensure and enable access for our suppliers to things like increased technology, renewable energy, and offset programs of their own that make sense.
Our ultimate goal in the next 10 and 15 years is to have all suppliers that are themselves carbon neutral, therefore contributing no negative carbon footprint to our overall global footprint.
Supply chain is a challenge for all of us, and we are as strong as our weakest link in the supply chain. We're actively engaging with all our partners and suppliers as well. One example of that is how we're engaging in the Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Initiative and trying to ensure that our partners and our suppliers, both of them, are including in their policies and processes environmental sustainability goals as part of that. One example is what Novartis hosted last year in India. We hosted a big conference and invited most of our suppliers in there to explain to them how can they include such goals and objectives in their own activities. Our third-party risk management program has implemented several aspects in there in order to ensure that it becomes a standard process when engaging with suppliers. Environmental risks, for example, are a go or no-go criteria in our third-party risk management. In addition, environmental goals and objectives are actually part of every single contract with the suppliers. We've made, for example, the environmental targets and objectives a part of the personal objectives of our senior leaders. We've looked at adjusting our footprint to create in advance some mitigation plans to what we know already from the most probable risks. We've provided information, some resources to our own associates so that they can take it forward themselves.
One of the things that's striking, I think, right now, what we're seeing is the explosion of innovation on how to tackle carbon, how to tackle our approach to climate change in general. What I'm very excited about is, one, how will these technologies get scaled? I also believe the power of digital technologies for us to track and predict how our operations will impact the environment is also very powerful. We're already putting in data systems that will enable us to track in real time what is our carbon footprint and how are the actions we're taking impacting that carbon footprint.
It's really time for us to go beyond our operations and go across all the value chain to really make a positive impact in the climate. That's the reason that we need really to partner with our colleagues, with our suppliers, with our communities to make sure that we are really protecting the environment. So that for that, it's really very important as well that we also embedded the environmental sustainability thinking in the way that we operate, and also that our associates in Novartis can do a positive contribution to that in the way that any investment we're doing in the future, we can get the best value for our patients, for the society, and for the environment.
So we're passionate about it as a leadership team, passionate about it as a company, to be a leader on this climate change journey.